Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into this story about a plane crash in 1993. A devastating one for the Skating Club of Boston. 6 people were killed, 2 young skaters, really talented. Their mothers and 2 coaches who themselves were former world champions. We've got these excerpts from a BBC article, and it really digs into the human impact of this event,
Oh.
beyond just the facts, and looks at how the club, well, they had already experienced a similar tragedy decades before, back in 1961, so how they found the strengths to move forward.
It's a story of, how a community can find resilience, I think, even in the face of this unimaginable loss. Yeah, there's a lot to learn from their experience.
Absolutely. So before we go too far into the aftermath, maybe it would help to paint a picture of who we lost. The article highlights Jinnah Han, only 13 years old, and Spencer Lane, he was 16. And both of them were described as right on the cusp of international careers. And they were balancing intense training with online schooling. That takes some serious dedication. And their coaches, Vadim Naumov and Evgenia Shishkova, they had reached, the top of the sport. They were world champions.
Yeah.
And now they were guiding the next generation.
Yeah, what's striking is, it's not just about those individuals who died, but it's the network of relationships and the potential that was just cut short. Their coaches, for example, they left behind a son who was also a promising skater.
Oh, wow.
It makes you think about all those layers of grief that the community had to process.
It's true. And the article really emphasizes that with some really powerful quotes, like Doug Zegib, he's the club's CEO. He described these young skaters as really, truly on the cusp of greatness. And then he went on to say, finally hitting their goals of representing not just the Skating Club of Boston, but representing their country. It's a reminder that these weren't just athletes. They were on the verge of, living out their dreams.
Yeah, and that sense of potential lost, I think it just really amplifies the tragedy. It wasn't just the talent, it was the years of work and sacrifice and dedication, all of it pointing to this future that was, just suddenly taken away.
And it wasn't just their skills, though, that people remembered. Fellow club members, Alisa Efimova and Misha Mitrofanov, they talked about their personalities. Efimova described them as 2 sunshines that you get energy from.
Oh.
And Mitrofanov called Spencer a firecracker who progressed quickly because he had this amazing talent. And, these descriptions, they paint a pretty vivid picture of who these people were beyond just their achievements in the sport.
Yeah, and that's what I think it really brings home, right? Every loss is a loss of a unique human being.
Yeah.
And they all have their own dreams, their own quirks, their own connections. And it adds this layer of complexity to the grieving process, I think. It moves beyond this abstract idea of potential lost to the very real absence of, these vibrant personalities in the community.
Totally. The article even mentions this detail that really stuck with me. Photographs of Jinnah and Spencer, they were at the club entrance.
Yeah.
And now they're surrounded by tributes and flowers. And, it's a reminder of their physical presence and this void that's left behind.
Yeah.
And also how the community is trying to cope with that.
It's that that common and healthy response to communal grief, right? To create those physical reminders and those spaces for shared remembrance, it gives a focal point for that outpouring of emotion, and it helps to solidify the memory of those who they lost within the community space.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then there's this quote from Misha Mitrofanov that just hit me. He said, "You don't expect it, and when it happens, it breaks you." And it's just so raw and so honest. I think anyone who's ever experienced sudden loss can understand that feeling.
Yeah, it captures the shock, the disbelief, just the shattering of normalcy when a tragedy happens when we don't expect it. But for the Skating Club of Boston, this wasn't their first experience with loss like this.
Here's where things get really interesting. Back in 1961, the club was hit by another plane crash. And that one took the lives of 18 members of the U.S. figure skating team. And 10 of those skaters were from their club. CEO Doug Zegib said his first thought was, this can't be happening again. How can lightning strike twice? It's almost like this collective trauma resurfacing, like a ghost from the past coming back. How do communities cope with repeated trauma? Is resilience even possible when history seems to repeat itself?
That's a complex question, and there's really no easy answer. But, what's fascinating here is that while trauma is devastating, it can also be a catalyst for incredible resilience, It forces a community to confront its deepest fears, find strength in that shared grief, and rebuild in a way that honors the past while also embracing the future.
So it's not just bouncing back. It's adapting and evolving in response to that trauma. It's about integrating it into the story of the community.
Yeah, exactly. Resilience isn't about erasing the pain or pretending it didn't happen. It's about acknowledging the wound. It's about allowing ourselves to grieve and then finding ways to move forward, without letting that trauma define us.
That makes sense, but how does that actually play out? Like in a community like this, what are some concrete ways they might start to rebuild and heal?
Well, we often see communities rallying around like shared goals or values or leadership. And the upcoming World Figure Skating Championships that the club was set to host, that could become a focal point for that collective effort. It's a chance to honor the memory of those they lost, but also show the community's strength and determination, to carry on.
That's a powerful idea. Channeling grief into action, using a shared goal to kind of unite and inspire everyone.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of Nancy Kerrigan. She was at the club offering support. She herself experienced adversity with, the attack back in '94 before the Olympics.
Hmm.
And she said something really profound.
I'd love to hear, yeah, what she said. What struck you about her words?
So she was talking about the support that she got after the attack. And she said, the community stood behind me and I was grateful for that. And so it's my turn now to hopefully be there. I'm not sure what it is to do. Maybe get a cup of coffee or a hug. I'm here for hugs. I don't know. It's just, I want to be able to give back what I feel like I got.
Mm.
It wasn't about some grand gesture. It was just about that human connection, just being there for people when they need it most.
What's so powerful about what Kerrigan is saying is that it's that cyclical nature of support and resilience. Like she received that support and then she was able to heal and move forward. And now she's offering that same support to others who are going through something similar. It highlights how interconnected we are as a community and how like those acts of kindness and empathy can really ripple outward and create a culture of support.
Yeah, it really makes you realize that resilience isn't just about individual strength. It's about that collective ability to lift each other up, to offer comfort and understanding, even when, we don't have all the answers.
Exactly. And sometimes the most powerful acts of support are the simplest, a
So,
hug, a listening ear, a shared moment of silence. Sometimes those speak volumes.
absolutely.
Mm.
So we're seeing this idea of shared purpose and collective action emerging as a key theme here in the club's journey toward healing. And these world championships, which they were already committed to hosting, presented a challenge but also an opportunity.
Oh, for sure. The article mentions CEO Ziggy acknowledging the immense pressure. He said, it all requires a lot from us, not just in running this club, not just in running the world championships, but now also in managing grief. It's hard to imagine the weight of that responsibility trying to navigate their own grief while also having to organize this huge international event.
Yeah, it's a testament to their commitment to the sport and maybe a way to honor those they lost by continuing the work they were so passionate about.
Hmm.
But on a practical level, how do you even begin to do something like that? How do you organize a global event while dealing with such profound loss?
Yeah, the article doesn't really dive into the specifics, but I think we can speculate that strong leadership, clear communication, and a sense of shared purpose would be crucial. Things like delegating tasks, effectively drawing on the support of volunteers and sponsors, and maybe even seeking guidance from people who are experienced in crisis management could have helped them handle the pressure.
So it becomes even more important in a situation like this to really work together and utilize outside resources.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to do everything themselves. It's about recognizing their limitations and reaching out for help.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in these moments that the strength of a community is truly tested. Do they
Mhm.
crumble under the weight of what's happened, or do they find ways to support each other, pool their resources, and come out stronger on the other side?
And in the case of the Skating Club of Boston, it seems like they chose the latter. They saw these world championships as more than just a competition. It became a symbol of their resilience, a tribute to those they lost, and a testament to the human spirit.
It's a powerful example of how a shared goal, even one as seemingly unrelated as a sporting event, can become a focal point for healing and rebuilding a community. It gives a positive outlet for grief, a chance to come together and celebrate the sport they all loved, and a way to show the world that they weren't defeated by this tragedy.
Zeged even said, I think looking to the future is part of the emotional healing process, and it's good to have things to focus on that are positive for the sport. It seems like they understood that dwelling in grief wouldn't bring back those they'd lost, but moving forward with purpose and hope could create a positive legacy in their honor.
It's a very pragmatic approach to healing. recognizing that there's a balance to be struck between honoring the past and embracing the future. And the World Championships became a very tangible representation of that balance, a way to acknowledge the pain of the loss, while also showing that the club was committed to moving forward and continuing the legacy of those who were so passionate about figure skating.
It makes you think about how we can apply that same principle to our own lives when we're going through tough times. How do we harness that collective energy, that sense of shared purpose, even when we're not dealing with something as big as a world championship? What advice would you give to someone who's trying to find that balance between honoring the past and moving forward?
That's a great question, and it's something a lot of us struggle with. I think it starts with recognizing that healing isn't linear. It's messy, it's unpredictable, and it takes time. There will be days when grief feels overwhelming, and that's okay. Allow yourself to feel those emotions, to honor the memories of those you've lost, and to seek support from those who understand.
So it's about acknowledging the pain, not trying to suppress it or rush through it.
Exactly. And as you begin to heal, look for ways to connect with others who have experienced similar loss. Sharing stories, offering support, and finding common ground can be really therapeutic. And think about what brings you joy, what gives you a sense of purpose. It could be something as simple as spending time in nature, pursuing a hobby, or volunteering your time to a cause you care about.
It's about finding those little sparks of light amidst the darkness. Those things that remind you of the beauty and goodness that still exists in the world.
Yeah. And as you engage in those activities, consider how you might honor the memory of those you've lost. Maybe you dedicate a performance to them, plant a tree in their honor, or simply share their stories with others. These acts of remembrance can be a powerful way to keep their spirit alive and to integrate their legacy into your own life's journey.
It's about finding a way to carry them with you, not in a way that weighs you down, but in a way that inspires you to live a life that would make them proud.
Beautifully put. And let's not forget the power of ritual and remembrance. The article mentions those photographs at the club's entrance now adorned with tributes. Creating physical spaces or personal rituals for remembering can be incredibly healing. It allows us to acknowledge the physical absence while also keeping the memory of our loved ones alive in a tangible way.
It's like those rituals can provide a sense of continuity, a bridge between the past and the present. They can help us feel connected to those we've lost, even as we move forward with our lives.
And it's important to remember that there's no right or wrong way to grieve. Everyone's journey is unique, and what works for one person may not work for another. The key is to be patient with yourself, to allow yourself to feel whatever emotions come up, and to seek support when you need it.
So we're talking about a multi-layered approach to healing, allowing ourselves to grieve, seeking support from others, finding purpose and joy in our lives, and honoring the memories of those we've lost in ways that feel meaningful.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing process, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, moments of intense grief, and moments of peace and acceptance. But over time, as we learn to integrate our loss into our lives, we can emerge from the darkness with a deeper understanding of ourselves, our capacity for love, and our resilience in the face of adversity.
It's like what we were talking about earlier about resilience not being about erasing the pain, but about adapting and evolving in response to it. The Skating Club of Boston's story really shows this idea so well.
I completely agree. They were forced to confront not one, but two unimaginable tragedies, and yet they found a way to channel their grief into action, to unite as a community, and to emerge from the darkness with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep understanding of how fragile and precious life is.
Their story is a powerful reminder that even in the face of immense loss, there is hope, there is resilience, and there is a way forward.
And that's a message worth remembering no matter what challenges we face in our own lives.
We've talked a lot about the Skating Club of Boston and, their resilience after that plane crash in '93, channeling their grief into hosting the World Championships, which took on this whole new meaning after everything. But what's really stuck with me is how they honored the memory of those they lost, while also, looking ahead to the future. It's such a delicate balance. Can you talk a bit more about that?
It's a theme that you see throughout the whole article, right? They didn't ignore their grief, but they didn't let it stop them either. The article mentions that they started a memorial fund to support young skaters and to make the sport safer. In honor of the victims, it's a real way to keep their memory alive, but also do something positive for the future of skating.
Yeah, that's a great example of turning pain into purpose. It's not about forgetting what happened, but making it meaningful going forward. Do you think taking action like that, those concrete steps, is a crucial part of healing?
Oh, absolutely. It can be incredibly powerful to channel your grief into something constructive. The article doesn't go into detail beyond the fund, but you can imagine other ways the club might have kept their memory alive. Maybe they named a competition after them or created a scholarship or dedicated a part of the rink to them.
Yeah. And those gestures would be constant reminders that they're still a part of the community,
Hmm.
like weaving their stories into the club itself. But it doesn't always have to be something big,
Mm.
right? I think even small everyday things can make a difference in the healing process.
You're right. It's often the little things that mean the most. Maybe the coaches share stories about the skaters during practice, or their names are mentioned during warm-ups, or they have a moment of silence before a competition. It keeps their spirit alive in the daily life of the club.
Right, that sense of continuity,
Hmm.
connecting the past to the present. It reminds everyone that even though those skaters are gone, they still had an impact on the community. Their legacy lives on in all those everyday things.
Exactly. And that feeling of continuity is so important for healing, both individually and as a community. It helps us understand that loss doesn't have to be the end. It can lead to growth and change, finding new ways to connect with the people we've lost and keep their memory alive.
This story really shows the strength of the human spirit. It reminds us that even when things are tragic, there's still hope and resilience and a way forward.
And I think this deep dive gives us a way to think about resilience, not just for a community facing a tragedy, but for our own lives. We all experience loss and grief and hard times. It's important to remember that healing takes time. It's a process.
And it's about drawing strength from the people around us, finding meaning in shared goals, and honoring the past while looking to the future, all part of the journey.
Exactly. And it's a message that goes beyond just figure skating. It's for everyone. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, we have the power to heal, grow, and connect with each other.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's heartbreaking but inspiring. We hope you keep thinking about these ideas and find ways to use them in your own life and in your own communities.